let's talk about what's going on. Republican Congressman Ed Royce of California is the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He's joining us live. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Wolf. Good to be with you.
Have you already been briefed on the arrest of this Kansas man, this individual, 20-year-old man named John Booker, also known as Mohammed Abdullah Hassan? We're showing his picture on the screen. What can you tell us about what's going on? Because it's pretty disturbing, 21 arrests like this since the beginning of this year.
What I can tell you is the FBI feel pretty confident at this point that because in the last 10 days they've made 7 such arrests, that they're doing a good job. They've really picked up their pace in terms of intercepting those who are trying to carry out these attacks. And the indication from them is that there are now cells or people that they're watching in all 50 states across the country. And at the same time that their biggest problem is the dissemination of that messaging out of ISIS, kill the enemy where they are. In other words, carry out the attacks inside the United States. This is the big challenge for the FBI and Homeland Security.
The court documents in this particular case say the suspect had tried to enlist in the U.S. Army, was due to head out to basic training only a few days ago on April 7th. Is there a concern that individuals inspired by these terror groups like ISIS or AQAP might start trying to infiltrate U.S. military headquarters, commit attacks inside the military?
Well, I think there's more investigation of that potential ever since the Fort Hood massacre, and I would add that there's heightened awareness of what ISIS is doing online ever since the Al-Qaeda publication, How to Make a Bomb in Your Mother's Kitchen, since that was used in the attack on the Boston Marathon. There is now, very close monitoring of what ISIS is putting out. The problem is that this is worldwide, this effort to recruit, and the victories that ISIS has overseas are inspiring, unfortunately, young men who read that magazine, Inspire, to make themselves available to commit suicidal acts, and this was an attempt at suicide by this young man today. Yeah,
that Inspire magazine in English, pretty slick online, and the actual title of that article, which they repeated several times, is How to Build a Bomb in the Kitchen of Your Mom. So they try to be very clever with all of their techniques, and as you know, it's not very difficult to get the raw material here in the United States, probably legally, to go ahead and build that kind of bomb, right?
That's the difficulty, and that's what the FBI is up against.
His arrest, as I pointed out, is the 21st ISIS-related arrest here in the United States since the start of this year. I pointed out a Madison, Wisconsin man arrested after flying to Turkey, coming back, was arrested. We know these radicalized individuals, as you point out, they're being investigated probably in all 50 states. How much of a threat do you believe ISIS, specifically ISIS, as opposed to Al-Qaeda, the other terror groups, really pose to the United States?
Well, the difference is that ISIS believes in mass attacks on civilians. When you're looking at Al-Qaeda, they have a strategy of trying to be strategic, trying to maximize the damage done on an institution. For example, an attack on the World Trade Center would be typical of the long-term planning that would go into an operation of Al-Qaeda. Their bomb-making capability is, second to none. And certainly Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula has shown that aptitude. That's why Yemen is such a problem right now, because that is where their bomb makers were housed. And for them and the Khorasan group, they now have free reign, unfortunately. Many have been released from prison as a result of the prison breaks since the government fell. Our allies in Yemen are now removed from the equation. So these are the concerns we have about Al-Qaeda right now.
And the Defense Secretary, Ash Carter, says it's a huge and growing concern. I want to pick that thought up as soon as we come back. Mr. Chairman, stay with us. We'll take a quick break. Much more with Ed Royce right after this. We're following the growing terror threat. New concerns tonight about al-Qaeda plots to attack right here in the United States after disturbing remarks by the Defense Secretary Ash Carter in an interview with CNN's Aaron Burnett. He's now saying al-Qaeda, the Arabian Peninsula, is growing, becoming more dangerous because of the situation, the disastrous situation unfolding in Yemen. We're back with Republican Congressman Ed Royce of California. He's the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. You agree with Ash Carter that al-Qaeda, AQAP in the Arabian Peninsula is clearly got a freer hand now to do destruction and damage.
And the reason they do, Wolf, is because what they seek is a situation where you've got anarchy, a stateless society. And now that President Hadi has been run out of Yemen and his army has collapsed, this gives them in the south of Yemen not only this ability to go back to staging attacks, but, you know, the United States was on the ground with our closest anti-terror ally there along the Red Sea. Now we're gone. And so there's no one basically able to keep them at bay, and many of their allies have been freed from these prisons. So, yes, they're on the mend. They're building their operation, and this is a grave concern to us.
Let's talk about the Iran nuclear deal. Some are suggesting it could be on life support right now. Do you think it's still alive potentially, or is it dead?
You know, it's hard to say because there's such a distance between what the Iranian officials are saying in the document. And you see the assertions not just of the chief negotiator and the president, but also of the Ayatollah himself that say, look, in our document, we don't see that this constricts us. You cannot have, from our position, you cannot have the ability to go into any of our military sites and have inspections there or have snap inspections. And on top of that, they're saying that the sanctions have to be lifted immediately, and that nowhere in the document does it say they're phased up, the lifting of the sanctions. So this is very different than the interpretation that the administration has given. And the release of those documents will be interesting. But also important here is the attitude we're seeing out of the Ayatollah, because once more yesterday, as he spoke to this issue, he led the audience in chants of death to America. So this has repeatedly gone on week after week, and you would think that in the middle of negotiations he would like to he should pull back a little bit from the threatening behavior, to say nothing of the fact that his forces are now in Yemen overthrowing another government. So his conduct has really been extraordinarily aggressive.
And so when administration officials say it's bluster for the domestic consumption in Iran, he's trying to appease hardliners, if you will, don't take it all that seriously, you say?
I say he has said they're going to mass produce ICBMs, and we know right now they're mass producing 3-stage ICBMs, and we're informed that as soon as next year they'll be able to target the Western Hemisphere. I would say we have a problem in this, given the fact that in the past I've seen those rockets go off, as you have, you know, in the Middle East against Israel, that were built by Iran. They don't seem reticent about using their inventory. So I would say we really need to do something in this negotiation, Wolf, to make sure they don't have a fleet of these ICBMs and undetectable nuclear breakout capability. And if we don't have the inspectors go in there and inspect the military sites, such as Fordo or, you know, Parchin, they won't let anybody into Parchin. We know 1,000 pages of documents that show that they were developing a warhead for a nuclear weapon there. This really needs to be addressed.
All right. I want you to listen to what Senator John McCain had to say about this back and forth between the Grand Ayatollah with U.S. officials, the Secretary of State, the President of the United States. McCain spoke in an interview with the radio talk show host Hugh Hewitt. Listen to this.
It's probably in black and white that the Ayatollah is probably right. John Kerry is delusional. And he came back, in my view, I think you're going to find out that they had never agreed to the things that John Kerry claimed that they had.
The White House press secretary later responded, Josh Earnest, saying McCain's comments, calling them naive and reckless. What's your reaction to this exchange right now? Strong words when John McCain calls the Secretary of State, John Kerry, delusional.
Well, here's the problem. A lot of this has been presented as sort of a negotiation, the broad framework completed, and now we're going to have these technical adjustments over the next few months. Clearly, for anybody looking at this objectively, there is no agreement on any one of the major 4 points. There is a great distance. So what we will be doing on Monday when I return, I'll be chairing, along with Elliot Engel of New York, the members of Congress. We're going to have a closed-door briefing on this information with the Secretary of State and Energy and Treasury about what the administration perceives is in the deal, as opposed to what the Iranians perceive is the language of the agreement. There's clearly a conflict of visions, and nobody seems to be on the same page. So we're going to try to get to the bottom of it.
Your bottom line is the deal is still alive, but maybe barely. Is that right?
And my bottom line is we have to come out, as you know my feelings about this, at the other end of this negotiation with the inspection regime such that we can go anywhere, anytime. And I don't mean we have to appeal to the UN first to get approval to do it. Those international inspectors have to have that right in the document. Otherwise, this isn't worth what it's printed on. There are other concerns as well, but that's the most basic concern right there. Nor should we immediately lift all of the sanctions and lose our leverage on this, as the Iranians are claiming we've agreed to do.
All right. Ed Royce is the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Mr. Chairman, thanks as usual for joining us.
Thank you, Wolf.